Morning. My name is Paulette Rigo, and I'm the Director of Coaching and Case Management here at Divorce Right. We provide exceptional, one of a kind training for HR professionals and company supervisors, as well as expecting and teaching expert divorce coaches and case management for you and your divorcing employees so that you could do the work you need to do and your employees can stay on track. At Divorce Right, we tackle the biggest disruptor most companies don't even know that they have. I didn't either until I started doing this work. It's divorce. And today we have another expert that provides relief to your divorcing employees. Please meet Jennifer Medwin. Jennifer is a CDC certified divorce coach, Supreme Court of Florida family mediator, and a certified marital mediator. Her private practice is in Pinecrest, Miami, and is called Seeking Empowerment Clarity Through Partnership. Jennifer specializes in working alongside individuals and couples who are contemplating divorce and are fearful of high conflict. That's a big problem, as well as those who hope to save their marriages. She partners with clients to develop the clarity, confidence, courage, and conflict management strategies and communication skills that they need to move smoothly through the process. Jennifer uses her knowledge of coaching and mediation to help her clients emotionally prepare for the dissolution of their marriages or the reconciliation of their relationships in the most organized, time efficient, and productive manner. Welcome to Divorce Rights Weekly LinkedIn Live today. Jennifer, so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's wonderful. When Vicki and I first I started having these conversations about bringing experts on a regular basis to companies and HR professionals, we knew that the way to do it was to give consistent value and consistent resources because divorce is one of those things that it's a process. It isn't something that takes 5 minutes. Even in an uncontested amicable divorce, it's a process, and there is a formality that you need to follow. And there's so many different aspects of it, and so many different professionals that people particularly will need, regardless of the case of how long they've been married and the company's awareness of how it affects them as an employee and ultimately how it affects the business and the company itself. So, considering your expertise as a mediator and a divorce coach, I'm going to ask you the question that I get asked every day. What is a divorce coach?
I'm so happy you asked that question because I too get that asked often. So, just a little background. In 2013, the American Bar Association defined divorce coaching as the fourth element of the divorce process. So, what does that mean? That means that it is imperative to have a team of professionals as you are moving through this process. Why? Because divorce is like a snowflake. No two are the same. And it is important that you can be the boss of your own process. And let's face it, it is another job. So if you are employed, you are now taking on another job that has a whole set of different scenarios, almost a different language that you really have to learn. And knowledge is power. And when you hire a divorce coach who works as like they manage the client for both the financial advisor or the attorney, even a therapist. They help the client to move forward. They're a sounding board, thinking partner, someone who is educated in the process of divorce. So, right from the onset, they can help them pick their professionals. And oftentimes people pick the wrong professionals because they are so quick to lawyer up, right? And then they find themselves completely overwhelmed. And that's what we want to help people do. Pick the right process, the right dissolution process for their relationship so they can move forward in a healthy, productive way, productive for themselves and productive for the company or firm that they are working for.
Mm. Yes, you brought up a really good point. It isn't just a matter of we're getting divorced or are we getting divorced, and the early contemplation, which can be really confusing and in many ways more overwhelming than the process itself. I find that once people have made the decision, not that it's always easy, but at least the anxiety of the decision making process is established. But now it's, well, how does this work? Like, what do I do? What is the norm versus, are there other options? I find most people don't know that there are options. So, who do I work with and what is the process? So, you very eloquently explained many of the roles and the duties or tasks that divorce coaches do. But what are
Mhm.
a few of the things that divorce coaches don't do?
Well, we are not attorneys. At least I am not an attorney, and most coaches are not attorneys. And we are not accountants, nor are we therapists. We are very forward focused. So we meet the client right where they are. Okay. Whether they're in the should I, shouldn't I stage of whether I should get divorced or I shouldn't,
Mhm,
whether they're middle or they are starting the next chapter after their lives. And what I can say to you is time and time again, I have clients who say to me, thank you for helping me have a seat at the table. Right. And we all know, we've all heard knowledge is power. And in order to help the employees who are going through divorce or contemplating divorce, and by the way, the average person thinks about a divorce 4 years prior to asking for one. Okay. And
mhm,
we want to help our employees, and we want to start to be able to identify some of the characteristics of someone who might be going through a divorce, right? Such as, are they coming in late? Are they, do they seem exhausted? Are they irritable? Um, are they losing weight? I mean, these are some of the symptoms that we can just be more mindful of.
mhm,
And the studies show that if we can create an environment in a workplace where there are social connections, right, where there are people who are reaching out to these individuals, just to let them know that there is someone there who cares about them, who can offer some suggestions, who can put them in a path where they feel empowered, is extremely beneficial, not only for the individual working at that particular firm, but the firm's productivity in and of itself for the macrocosm.
mm. And you mentioned the 4 years prior to initiating divorce, of that kind of living in what I call limbo or ambivalence of that, that's that bowl of emotions is all stirred up, right? Of how someone, particularly any employee in any company, whether it be a small company or an extremely large one, how that 4 years of living in that turmoil, that internal dialogue could affect them. And
Mm.
if they're able to have a, even if they're contemplating it, if they're able to have a thinking partner, an expert, a sounding board, someone that they can lock arms with and kind of walk forward through it, how that could improve every other aspect of their life.
For
Yeah.
sure. And
Mm,
anyone who's contemplating or going through the divorce process wants to feel that there is a path and wants to have some clarity as to where they are, where they're going to go, and how to bridge that gap. And
right.
as a divorce coach, that's what we help them do. We help them avoid some of the biggest mistakes in divorce, such as, all or nothing thinking, my way or the highway, giving up their power to their other professionals, and so on and so forth. And studies have shown that when you feel more educated about whatever process you are in, you are able to move forward in a healthier, more productive way. And when you feel that there is more hope, you have the ability to compartmentalize a lot more
Mm,
versus constantly being, I call that sleepwalking through life. you have different ways of saying it. And, it really helps firmly plant you in the ground as to, okay, I'm getting divorced. I have a partner, a thinking partner, a sounding board who's educated in the process, who can help me develop flexible thinking, who can help me figure out what process is going to work for me, who can help me think outside of the box, right? When we're
Mhm.
so overwhelmed, we become so fixated on what it is that we think is in our best interest.
Mm. And as many people know, you and I in particular, the work we do, understand that divorce is one of those things that we're neither Jennifer nor myself are pro divorce. Don't get us wrong. We don't run around with, billboards like everyone get divorced. If anything, I think many of us try to put the fire out and try to see like what can we do to try to save an aspect of this combat or this aggression or discord in the relationship to really think more reasonably because the emotional system just takes over the body and the mind and the thinking, and it's so difficult to make rational choices, and
Mm.
therefore not able to make smart choices because your sympathetic and parasympathetic system are constantly fighting with one another. And not to have a biology talk here, but we are just a bundle of neurons and brain waves when it comes to making decisions. And when you're in a time of stress, whether that be at work or in family, it now just kind of gets mingled in. So
Sure.
now with businesses and HR professionals, they're really understanding here that what the role of a divorce coach could be in helping their employees stay on point, productive, more utilized, and becoming more aware of the mistakes they could make before making them. Because, not that some mistakes can't be rectified, but sometimes when a mistake is made, it's harder to undo the damage than it is if you had known about it prior to it. But for those companies that really are starting to understand that this is a much needed solution, um, can you share a few of these communication strategies that you, as a divorce coach and a mediator, could use to help increase the chances employees have to lessen conflict, thus having an increased ability to concentrate and be more productive at work?
Sure. What I want everyone to understand is the communication tools that I'm going to talk about. Yes, we are speaking about divorce, but it can be in any walk of life. And
Mhm,
what people who are going through divorce don't want is they don't want to be singled out. So teaching your employees, having an event to create a social connection, where you're teaching them some communication skills, only benefits everybody because conflict exists on a daily basis, right? I
mhm,
mean, it is something that we have to live with. So some of the skills that I work on with my clients are something called STPA: stop, think, pause, and then act. Okay. Creating moments for yourself where you can just be less reactive. Because at the end of the day, all you have control over is how you react and respond. Okay.
mhm,
Often, when we're in conflict, we tend to defend. Okay. We tend to jump into the dance. As soon as you defend yourself, as soon as you're in the mode of defending yourself, you have entered the conflict. So, what I always work with my clients on is something called ear statements. They're from Bill Eddy, where you communicate with someone with empathy, attention, and respect. I hear what you're saying. I need some time to think about it. I hear that you're very upset. I'm sorry this is difficult for you. Let's regroup in a few minutes, right?
mm,
Because what people don't understand is everyone wants to be acknowledged, everyone wants to be heard, right?
mm.
And at the basic level, communication has three elements. And this, if anybody gets anything out of this talk today, this is what is really important because it affects all of us. So you have body language, you have tone of voice, and you have words that make up communication. What do you think, Paulette, is the most important?
Well, my personal opinion would be tone of voice, but
Hmm.
everybody's
So
going to appropriate, don't other, from my understanding, people read into that different ways.
they do. And yet, tone of voice is about 55% of what makes up communication. And so, what I want to encourage individuals, particularly those who are going through the divorce process, is be aware of your tone of voice. And if you can sort of keep it at neutral,
Mhm.
that really not only helps decrease the conflict, it also helps physiologically what is going on inside of your body, right? Because if you start to churn and get really upset and start to yell, there is a recovery period far beyond just the conflict, which is extremely unhealthy. Okay. And if somebody starts to yell, you go lower, always lower, lower, and lower. Um, and then body language. So many of my clients are not aware of their body language when they feel they need to defend themselves. So they'll cross their arms, they'll furrow their eyebrows, they'll
Mm.
stare, they'll raise one eyebrow. And if we can practice be having a more open stance, leaving our arms open, not crossing our legs, relaxing our muscles. And it's practice, and practice makes better. And then the words that we use, right? We don't want to, well, I talk about the three P's, right, of conflict. You want to focus on the present, not the past. You want to focus on the problem, not the person. So oftentimes when we get really upset, we start either sandbagging, name calling, gaslighting the other person, and that only intensifies conflict. And you really want to focus on one problem at a time. Often we bring up so many issues, and that helps to escalate. So the three P's are really effective in conflict. And look, in the workplace we have conflict, we don't always agree on ideas. However, if we understand how to communicate the most effectively, then we can move through these issues.
Mm. And if a company is educated, particularly those people that are with employees and are more HR mindset and C-suite executives that are really like there with them, and they're aware that these skills can not only help them in the business with their work productivity if there's a conflict at work with maybe a deadline or a difference of opinion of how a project should be managed or handled, perhaps some sort of budgeting issue, or who knows. I mean, there's and many I'm not pretending to be a business expert by any means, but if they have that knowledge, right, let's take that advantage of just taking one task at a time, right, then uh, chances are they're going to be being able to use their muscles and practice that at work, and it will then trickle down or start to melt into other aspects of their life. Now, we see that sometimes, even though people have those skills or they may have learned them, when you're in a time of urgency or high stress because you are being insulted or ignored, like meaning you've reached out to your spouse and you've asked them a question, and say minutes, hours, days have gone by and there's been no response. Uh, it leads to more negative reactions versus more positive reactions. And we don't necessarily have a team of experts at home to help us. Like at work, we have, I wouldn't say a team of experts, but we have a support system at
Mhm.
work with other coworkers or bosses or peers or professionals that can step in when you have a conflict. How amazing would it be, or maybe would be interesting if you were at home and you could go down the hall, knock on your HR director's door and say, "Excuse me, do you have a minute? I'd like to make an appointment. I have a conflict with my spouse, or my 18-year-old is being fresh, or my 9-year-old, or whatever, or my mother-in-law, or my, but we don't
Mm.
have that, right? So we don't have a team of experts in domestic relationships. And that would be complicated. And some people then reach out to maybe family members or outside influences that aren't necessarily going to give them the best advice.
Mm.
Some of the advice might be helpful, but some of it may not be. Now you throw in it the complexity with conflict in a marriage and potentially the conversation or the process of divorce, and where people don't understand what divorce looks like. They also don't understand that there are options, how much it costs, and the length of time and contentiousness that can arise. So then they go to work and don't want to share that because it's embarrassing, or it's something that they feel shouldn't be a burden to others, particularly their job. You mentioned also that people are looking to feel like they have a sense of community or a
Mm.
sense of connection at work, in their work that they do, that they don't want to just be a solo cog in the wheel, right? The cookie cutter kind of uh, assembly line feeling of, I'm just another employee, that I go in, I do my work, I go home, I get a paycheck. I go in, I do my work, I come home, I get my paycheck. There isn't that sense of cohesiveness with the company.
Mm.
So um, I really think you brought up some really great points there with helping them.
You know, everyone, no matter whether you're going through a divorce or not, everyone wants to feel acknowledged and everyone wants to feel heard. And creating a place in within the workforce for example, a 5-minute exercise that, we could do in the lunchroom helps, breed creativity. University of Stanford did this whole research and they said that organizations that create opportunities for their employees to walk or do some form of exercise, and again, it could be 2 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, their creativity increased, their stress went down. And when that happens, the opportunity for productivity goes up. It's the same thing with employees who are on all day long. If they're working all day long, their productivity tends to decrease because everybody needs a break. And creating, opportunities, donuts in the lunchroom or something like that, where they have the opportunity to connect and socialize and sort of decompress in order to move on. That helps everyone, particularly those who are overwhelmed by the divorce
Mm.
process.
And you're not just referring to opportunities for advancement or opportunities for a raise or a bonus or some recognition, although that's always nice too, but an opportunity where they feel breathing room or a sense of expansion and creativity, as you said. It will also make them feel more connected to the business as a whole,
That's
where they aren't there to uh, solve one minute little issue, but they could perhaps, like the drop of water, in the
right.
pond, or it can expand, and they have an influence or an impact on the good of not just their role, but other roles and the impact of the company as a whole. It's enlightening for me, and when I'm working with divorce right employees and divorce right HR professionals, to hear them share their ideas and their insight as to the ways that they are understanding that business as a whole is changing. And I do
Mm.
believe the stay at home mindset of working from home, although that is changing, right? We were all in shock and awe with the 2019, like, wait, we have to stay home? Idea of that, and, it shifted our mindset and our thinking and our psyche, where our emotional, mental, psychological self had to then also jive with our mental self and our physical self of, like, getting in the car, driving somewhere, parking,
Right.
going to a business, whether it's a entrepreneur solo or a major business. I think all of society and all of culture had had a big shift. Well, now 3 years later, and as you and I know, divorce is not necessarily going away. If anything, I see personally many people really, much as we did also in 9/11, where there was that, like, wake up kind of like, wow, this is a real thing, of wanting to raise the bar with our quality of life, wanting to raise the bar with our quality of our relationships, wanting to raise the bar with the quality of our marriages, and also the work we do, wanting to really have a career, a job, um, whether it be a small group environment or a major company. You really want to feel like you are there for the purpose and meaning, and your why is in alignment with the why and the goals and the mission of the company that you work for. And that really makes me happy that many companies are understanding that their employees are valuable talent. I like to call them talent, maybe
They
because I was performing. I taught ballet for years and years, many moons ago, and I always saw them as talent, but they really are talent, right, Jennifer?
Yeah, they are. And the analogy sort of that I like to use is a rope, right? A rope is made up of many strands, right?
Mm,
And if you were going to go rappelling down a mountain, you would want that rope to be very strong. And if each of those strands are one of your employees, you're only as strong as the next employee, right? And
mm,
so creating these systems within the workforce where you acknowledge the human aspects and the human conflicts that we all experience, um, and you provide tools to help people move forward
mm,
is going to be not only rewarding personally, but it will also be rewarding professionally.
mm. You mentioned earlier the World Health Organization new definition of burnout syndrome. Um, Talk a little bit about that before we wrap up today.
So they defined that in January of 2022. And we all know what burnout is. When you're feeling completely exhausted, you're depleted, you're having problems focusing, so on and so forth. Well, it is not only in the workplace, it's also burnout in your life.
Mm,
And I always encourage my clients to think about what is the balance? How do you create that balance? And being able as PR professionals to identify some of the symptoms of burnout can only bring the macrocosm of the people in your company to a higher, healthier, more productive level, right? And being able
mm,
to give them and provide them tools so that they can move forward in healthier ways. That's essential, and we're going to hear more about increasing the well-being of the employees in the workforce, because that at the end of the day is what is going to propel all companies to the next level.
And isn't that what it's all about? Propelling your employees to the very next level. That is
Yeah.
one of our missions here, is to make sure that all the employees, whether they be, the owner all the way to somebody brand new that just got their entrance or welcome packet from the HR professional. Everybody matters, and it's really important that everyone has the strategies and the support and the resources that they need to thrive. And don't forget, we do here at Divorce Right have SHRM credits for SHRM members. There will be a link in the chat in this post. So if you are a business owner or an HR professional, please don't let your company suffer due to the impact divorce has on your talent. You need them and they need you. We have the solution. We are the solution. So until next time, we'll see you next Thursday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.